Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden, Wizard. For my library project, I read Ghoul Goblin by Jim Butcher. Ghoul Goblin is a graphic novel which takes place during the Dresden Files book series. It's actually a compilation of 5 comics which make up the story, meaning it isn't an actual graphic novel, but still very cool. For those unaware, Harry Dresden is a wizard, and unlike Harry Potter, Dresden's world follows strict rules of magic: what can work, what doesn't work, what is theoretically possible. Dresden is a private detective working in Chicago, and while most of his clients are normal people looking for a lost ring or a one-way kid, there are rare exceptions like vampires, werewolves, wicked fairies, demons, and angels, and, well, you get the idea. If you haven't read Dresden Files, stop what you're doing and go read them. Yes, the whole series. Yes, right now. All done? Good. Now let's look at Ghoul Goblin, which as far as I can tell takes place between the events of Full Moon, the second Dresden book, and Grave Peril, the third. Ghoul Goblin is written by Mark Powers and Jim Butcher, who is the author of the entirety of the Dresden Files. It was illustrated by Joseph Cooper and published by Del Rey Devil Brothers Publishing. It's a total of 183 pages, though this includes a lot of bonus content like concept art, forwards, and postscripts from Butcher, and the original covers for each section. Since it's broken up into pieces, it's hard for me to pick where Act 2 and 3 actually begin, but I would say that Act 2 starts at the beginning of the second volume on page 37, and Act 3 at the beginning of the last volume on page 143. This means that the majority of the story is in Act 2, which follows what we learned in class. The story, as with all Dresden stories, is of course about Harry Dresden, and one of his dangerous cases involving supernatural forces, murder, sex, blood, magic, shotguns, and yeah, it's pretty great. Dresden's character arc doesn't change significantly, as he's sort of an outsider when he enters each circumstance. In the long run, over the course of the series, you can see him grow and change, but in this single novel, I would say he's not the one who changes. The people around him do. The Talbots, the cursed family line, Press, good-natured if a little simple town deputy, and even the town's mayor all change for better or worse through the story, but Dresden is kind of our constant. In short, after horrific murders take place in a small rural town, Press, the town deputy, calls up the only wizard in the Chicago Yellow Pages, Harry. Harry takes the case, despite having a terrible cold, and comes to town to try to solve the murder. He's quickly drawn into a supernatural mystery as he uncovers the nature of the killers, a ghoul and a goblin, which are both hunting the Talbot family due to a curse from the First World War. Dresden finds himself outmatched by both creatures, and has to come up with ways to protect the Talbot family from further grisly murders with, varying degrees of success. I think the art in this is just phenomenal and really directs the reader's eye in each panel. The idea of using each page as a mini-comic is quite evident, and the narrative and art work amazingly to deliver a classically Dresden feel to the comics world. I would have to recommend this to anyone who is a fan of comics, magic, fantasy, or even just reading in general. I'll definitely be getting a hardcover to add to my book collection as soon as possible. And as for a fun fact, Jim Butcher, the author who first inspired me to start writing, moved into my city a couple of years ago, and I got the chance to meet him. In fact, in 2 weeks, he's hosting a movie at the Alamo Drafthouse where I'll get to have his new book signed and watch Big Trouble in Little China with him. At least that's a fun fact for me.